7th gear, not 8th. At over 300 kilometers per hour on the Bahrain Straight, Charles Leclerc holds the SF26 in 7th, while everyone else chases the rev limiter in 8th. It looks small, it looks almost conservative, but it tells you something is different. Because while the timing screens flash 134.273, half a second clear of the field, Ferrari are not driving like a team squeezing everything from the car. They are driving like a team measuring something, and behind that single lap sits a choice no other manufacturer made for 2026. Steel cylinder heads instead of aluminum. Heavier, riskier, unfashionable. So the question isn't whether Ferrari topped testing, it's this: are they hiding performance or rewriting the philosophy of the entire new era? The headline was simple: Ferrari fastest in Bahrain. Charles Leclerc stopped the clock at 1 minute 34.273 during the cooler morning session, more than half a second clear of the next name on the sheet. Across 2 days, the SF26 completed 271 laps without a single mechanical issue. Stable in high speed, planted under braking, clean through traction zones. On the surface, it looked like a statement, but context matters. That lap came on the C3 soft compound. The McLaren that finished second, driven by Lando Norris, set its 1 minute 34.784 on the harder C2 medium tire. The performance delta between those compounds in Bahrain conditions is estimated at 4 to 7 tenths of a second, which means on equal rubber, the gap disappears. Possibly reverses. Now add the tire allocation strategy. Ferrari requested 20 sets of C3 softs, the maximum allowed. McLaren and Aston Martin requested just 8 sets each. That is not a team prioritizing race simulation degradation curves. That is a team optimizing short-run grip windows and peak balance mapping. Ferrari were not chasing Sunday pace projections, they were mapping the car's performance envelope, and they told us this would happen. Before the first wheel turned in anger, Ferrari leadership admitted the car brought to Bahrain was not the final specification. It was described as Spec A, a mileage car, a starting point. Visible upgrades had already appeared since Barcelona: a flatter main plane on the front wing, redesigned end plates with outward curvature for improved outwash, a revised rear floor section. Yet internally, Ferrari acknowledged the front end remains less advanced than direct rivals. Translated from engineer language, faster components exist in Maranello. So the fastest lap in Bahrain might not have come from the fastest version of the SF26. But that wasn't the real story. Let's strip away emotion and look at arithmetic. Leclerc, 1 minute 34.273 seconds on C3. Norris, 1 minute 34.784 seconds on C2. Compound delta 0.4 to 0.7 seconds. If we split the difference at half a second, McLaren could theoretically have been equal, even marginally ahead, on identical tires. But that is only one layer. Ferrari, 271 laps in 2 days. Haas, also Ferrari-powered, 245 laps. Cadillac, in its very first preseason as a Formula One entrant, 216 laps. That's 732 laps combined for Ferrari-powered teams. Now compare. Red Bull Ford, 431 laps. Honda-powered Aston Martin, 134 laps. Mercedes Works Team, 143 laps after a power unit failure limited Kimi Antonelli to just 3 laps before an engine change. 3 laps. Red Bull also lost critical time after a hydraulic leak restricted Isaac Hadjar to a single installation lap in the morning before repairs. Those lost hours do not return. Reliability in preseason isn't glamorous, but it dictates development rate. Every additional lap compounds data accuracy. Every data point sharpens correlation between simulation and track. Now consider degradation programs. Ferrari's heavy C3 allocation suggests a short-run focus. They were not committing to long, fuel-heavy simulations. They were not advertising race pace. They were building a database. And here is where the numbers become strategic rather than statistical. Engine homologation locks on March 1st. Australian Grand Prix qualifying is March 8th. That leaves minimal time for architectural changes. What is validated now becomes frozen. Ferrari achieved competitive headline pace while prioritizing reliability accumulation and holding upgrades in reserve. The timing sheet might show a half-second advantage. The lap count shows operational dominance. And when reliability, tire allocation, and development timing align, that is not noise. It is positioning. But numbers alone do not explain the philosophy driving this car. For that, you have to look inside the engine. Every other manufacturer on the 2026 grid chose aluminum for their cylinder heads. Lighter, proven, safe. Ferrari chose steel alloy, incorporating copper and ceramic elements. On paper, that sounds like a mistake. Steel is heavier. Weight is lap time. And under a 50-50 power split regulation between combustion and electrical systems, efficiency is everything. But steel tolerates higher combustion pressures and higher temperatures, which means Ferrari can run more aggressive ignition conditions inside each cylinder. More pressure equals more extracted energy per combustion event. Reports from Bahrain indicate that under the leadership of Enrico Gualtieri, Ferrari achieved a durability breakthrough in late 2025 that made full commitment to steel viable. This is not experimentation. It is a calculated bet that internal load tolerance translates directly into output. And in a regulation cycle where the geometric compression ratio is capped at 16:1, maximizing what happens within that limit becomes the battleground. Steel allows Ferrari to operate closer to structural thresholds aluminum cannot survive. But combustion is only half the story. The 2026 regulations mandate a 350 kilowatt MGUK, a significant jump in electrical contribution. Ferrari's World Endurance Championship hypercar, the 499P, runs a 200 kilowatt battery system. Data from that program reportedly fed directly into minimizing battery pack mass for the SF26. Mercedes does not compete in WEC hypercar, which means Ferrari entered 2026 with endurance-proven battery architecture data rivals do not possess. And Bahrain telemetry suggests Ferrari's energy recovery is exceeding internal targets. So while others chase marginal horsepower, Ferrari may have optimized the integration between combustion durability and electrical recovery. Steel for pressure tolerance, endurance data for battery efficiency. That is not a conventional approach. That is a philosophical departure. And it becomes even more intriguing when you examine what Ferrari did not do in Bahrain. The 2026 regulations cap geometric compression at 16:1. Measured cold, stationary, ambient temperature. Mercedes reportedly identified a distinction, using high chromium austenitic stainless steel connecting rods that expand significantly at operating temperature, while surrounding alloys expand less. They effectively reduce combustion chamber volume when hot. Cold measurement, legal. Hot operation, effective ratio approaching 18:1. Estimated gain, 10 to 15 horsepower. Lap time, 2 to 3 tenths. Ferrari, Honda, Audi, and Red Bull have formally lobbied the FIA to address the loophole. The FIA has acknowledged the concern. Mercedes' stance is clear. The regulations are clear. McLaren aligns with that position. No resolution is expected before March 8th in Melbourne. Homologation locks March 1st, which means replication is impossible. If the loophole stands, Mercedes-powered teams gain straight-line advantage. If it is closed, they lose performance immediately. For Ferrari, this is massive, because their performance, steel heads, endurance battery integration, exists within conventional interpretation. If Mercedes lose 10 to 15 horsepower, Ferrari's baseline suddenly looks stronger. If Mercedes keep it, Ferrari must overcome a measurable deficit. The battle will not be decided by lap times in Bahrain, it will be decided in regulatory interpretation. And that uncertainty is shaping how every team behaves right now, including Ferrari. But history suggests caution, and Ferrari fans know that better than anyone. Ferrari topped preseason testing in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2024. They failed to win the championship each time. In 2016, they did not win a single race despite leading testing. In 2019, Ferrari appeared untouchable in Barcelona. The paddock believed they held a half-second advantage. Then Melbourne. Mercedes won the first 8 races of the season. Lewis Hamilton took pole by 7 tenths. It was Mercedes who had been hiding performance. Former Ferrari strategists have acknowledged a recurring pattern. The team historically runs lower fuel at the end of testing than rivals, showing too much too early, and the betting markets reflect skepticism. George Russell and Max Verstappen are joint favorites for 2026. Lewis Hamilton's implied title probability sits just under 3%. Ferrari are not viewed as championship leaders by the consensus, which creates a paradox. They topped testing, they lead lap counts, they show reliability dominance, yet the paddock hesitates, because history whispers caution. But 2026 is not a continuation, it is a reset. And resets reward bold architecture. Ferrari topped Bahrain with a 134.273, but the lap time is not the revelation is philosophy. Steel cylinder heads capable of higher internal pressures, endurance-derived battery mass optimization, energy recovery efficient enough to ignore aggressive first-gear harvesting, 271 laps without failure, 732 laps across powered teams, all achieved while publicly admitting the car is not final specification. If Mercedes retain a potential 10 to 15 horsepower compression advantage, Ferrari must out-integrate them elsewhere. If that loophole closes, Ferrari's conventional engineering suddenly becomes the benchmark. History tells us preseason dominance is fragile, but 2026 is not a carryover year. It is structural redefinition, and in structural resets, the bold often define the trajectory. Ferrari have not shown everything, that much is clear. Whether what remains hidden is incremental or transformational will only be revealed when fuel loads drop and engine modes rise in Melbourne. Until then, the fastest thing in Bahrain might not be the lap time, it might be the narrative shifting underneath it. If Ferrari have achieved headline pace with steel cylinder heads, endurance-derived battery integration, and a restrained energy deployment strategy, all while holding back upgrades, then what happens when they run minimum fuel, maximum engine modes, and full specification on March 8th? And more critically, if the compression ratio loophole is closed after homologation, does that instantly elevate Ferrari from testing leader to regulation era benchmark? Or are we watching another beautifully constructed preseason illusion? Because in a year defined by bold engineering choices, the real question is not who topped testing, it is whose philosophy survives contact with reality.